eyebrows. And now I am in the 1950 section of a bookshop I have walked past for 3 years without going in, which is now a kind of mystery. The smell in here is paper and something specific to shops that have been selling the same thing since they opened. The woman at the desk does not look up, which is the correct approach to a rainy day customer who came in for shelter and may become a buyer. Rainy day bookshop and the 1950s section, and a book I have been meaning to read since college. Priced at $3, which is the price of accident, and finding what you needed in the wrong aisle. Rainy day bookshop, and the rain still going outside, and the woman at the desk now minding her own reading. I take the $3 book to the armchair in the corner, read the first page, which is the whole commitment. There are notes in the margins from someone who read this in '72 and disagreed consistently but kept reading, which is the most honest relationship with a book. The disagreement that continues to the end. The rain eases, but I do not leave with it, because the armchair and the 1950s section have established a separate arrangement with the afternoon. Rainy day bookshop, I buy the $3 book and 2 others that found me in the armchair hour, and thank the woman for the corner and the quiet which she receives, as if it were nothing, which it wasn't. As the lighthouse starts its long rotation, and the cafe beside it stays open for the keepers. I am not a keeper, but I come here for the coffee and for the feeling of a thing that does not fail. The harbor is going amber at the edges, and the first boats with their lights are coming in. There is a comfort in the things that rotate, that show up when they are supposed to show up. The light, the tide, the coffee, and the dark. Harbor lantern doing what it always does, turning in its patient revolution. I watch it from the window with my cup and feel the thing that I came here to feel. Harbor lantern and the boats adjust their heading a few degrees because the signal says so. Something that enormous, taking direction from a light this small is worth remembering. The keeper's daughter reads a book beside me, one I recognize, but she is at a different part. The power, everything is still uncertain, which I been counting long enough to know that 8 seconds is a useful unit of patience. Harbor lantern, I will leave before it's fully dark, but the light will still be turning when I do. And tomorrow after that, which is the only promise worth believing. At 11 the night market takes itself apart. The string lights go out section by section. Vendors fold their tables with the ease of practice, and the smell of food gives way to cooler air. I am walking through the unwinding of the evening, which is its own kind of spectacle. The man who sold the dumplings all night long is loading his cart with the focus of a sailor, knowing port from the inside of the work. Night market close and the string lights running out. I walk through what the evening used to be. The chalk drawings on the pavement going dark. The last transaction happening somewhere behind me. Night market close and the vendors have their money, and the count will happen in the van or kitchen, and the number will be what it is tonight, which is the whole negotiation settled. A child asleep across her father's shoulder has missed the last hour, and it does not matter. She had the earlier part, which was the better part, and now she has the carrying. One stall is still open, selling something sweet. The vendor showing no urgency about the hour. Some nights extend themselves by one good stall. Night market close, I buy the last thing offered. A bag of something warm I eat while walking past the folded market and into the ordinary street, which is what all good evenings return you to.
lighthouse kitchen is 4 feet by 7. Everything in its place because everything must be. The coffee runs from 5 and the keeper makes it the same way his father made it here. I am allowed in this kitchen as a guest, which means I do not move anything or ask. Outside the light is doing what it does each minute, regardless of who is in the kitchen or what they feel, which is the lighthouse's contribution to philosophy. The lighthouse kitchen and the sound of sea outside, the particular cold that comes through the window seam. I hold the cup with both hands the way the cold instructs, and watch the light pass over the water. The lighthouse kitchen and the keeper at the window, checking something in the horizon line by habit. He has been checking that horizon for 11 years, and something about the way he looks says he is right too. The coffee is strong and has been made by someone who understands that warmth is not a luxury, but a working condition in a place like this, and I drink it with the respect it deserves. The light comes through the kitchen window on its round. For 1 second it illuminates the copper pot, and then it moves and everything is ordinary again. The lighthouse kitchen, I will leave before the dark, but the keeper will be here through all the hours, making coffee at 5 and checking the horizon, which is the work, and I am grateful for the workers.
The perfumer teaches smelling, which is a real course. You learn to separate what arrives together. The pepper at the top and the wood underneath, and the thing that only comes after 15 minutes, which she calls the bass note, and which is the truest thing the bottle has to say. I have been wrong about what I like for years, confusing the top note, which is quick and pretty, with the bass note, which is what I actually am. The perfumer's afternoon and the paper strips that carry one thing at a time to the educated nose. I smell the rose and then the rose alone, and then the thing that happens after rose. The perfumer's afternoon and the hour of vocabulary I am acquiring in the language of smell. Top note, middle note, bass note, and the dry down, which is the word for what remains when everything else leaves. She shows me how to rest the nose between the smelling, which is to smell your own rhythm. just for the reset. The skin neutralizes and returns you to your starting point, which is a useful skill beyond this afternoon. I find one I did not expect to find, a thing with pepper at the top and honey at the base, which is the combination of myself I did not know. The perfumer's afternoon, ending with a small decant of the thing that had the right dry down for me. I walk into the afternoon wearing the bass note and feel correctly named for the first time in some years. The loom at noon has a different quality of light than the morning loom, which is more deliberate. At noon the weaving has its own momentum, and the shuttle finds the shed without my searching. I have been at this piece since 8, and by noon I am the loom as much as the loom is the loom. The pattern is in the hands and not the mind by now, which is the state the weaver works toward for months, and which arrives without announcement. The weaver's midday and the shuttle in its rhythm, the warp and weft making their old agreement. I watch my hands do what my hands have learned, and feel the particular pride of the self-taught. The weaver's midday and the cloth emerging section by section below the fell of the work. I stop to look at what an hour made and find it is what I intended, which is still surprising. The thread I chose this morning for the horizontal is not the thread I would choose now at noon, but the woven is committed to the morning choice, and I will follow where the morning led. The loom makes a sound when the shed changes that I've been hearing for 4 years, and which I will hear for the rest of my life in other rooms. The weaver's midday and the cloth is what it is. I take my lunch and leave the loom standing open in the shape of the last shed, which holds the afternoon's beginning already made. The beekeeper's shop has a corner for tasting, where the honeys are arranged from light to dark. She names them by the flowers they came from, as if introducing acquaintances of long standing. I have never thought about honey this precisely, and now I am thinking about nothing else. The acacia is pale and slow and does not compete takes up the whole mouth. The wildflower is the one that came from somewhere specific. The beekeeper's table and the flight of amber, from the one that tastes like early summer to the one that tastes like something that survived the frost. Which is a flavor? I did not have a name for the beekeeper's table and the coffee with the dark honey stirred in the way she showed me, without sugar. The warmth of the cup and the warmth of the October and the warmth of the thing that came from the hive. She tells me about the clover season this year and what the summer did to the buckwheat yield, and I listen the way I listen to the person who knows the thing that I will never know. The wax she keeps in a small jar on the counter smells like the inside of something very old that has been keeping something sweet. The beekeeper's table I leave with 3 small jars and the vocabulary of honey, which is new, and the understanding that I have been eating the wrong honey in the wrong quantity all year.
On Tuesdays, the sommelier sits at his own bar and drinks what he feels like without narrating it. The daylight comes through the bottles on the shelf, making a color spectrum on the opposite wall. He has been talking about wine for 20 years, and today he is not talking about anything. I am here because the bar is quiet and he is quiet, and we have established that I will not ask questions and he will not feel obligated to answer. The sommelier's day off and the burgundy breathing and the glass that is the shape that suits it best. He holds it up to see what the light does, and then he drinks it as a professional relaxation. The sommelier's day off and the afternoon bottles lit from behind by the particular October sun. I have a coffee and the silence of his expertise, and both of us are resting in our different ways. He opens something from the cellar for himself and does not describe it for anyone. The sound it makes decanting into the glass is the whole description. I ask him nothing and he offers something anyway. A small pour of the thing he opened, not for evaluation, just for company. The sommelier's day off is ending at 6, when the reservations call the place to order. He stands and puts the professional back on, and I take my coffee and the small pour home. At 5 the diner fills with a specific kind of person, the ones who traded the night for a living. They know the waitress by the name on her tag, and she knows what they take without the question. I am here early for a different reason, but the coffee makes me equal to the hour. The man beside me has been driving since midnight. His eyes are done with the dark but still adjusting. We share the counter and the silence respectfully. The taxi driver's breakfast and the end of something long. The eggs and the relief of not being moving. The city outside deciding to begin again, and these people deciding to conclude. The taxi driver's breakfast and the ordinary diner with its hash browns and its working mercy. I am not from this hour, but I am in it, and I am grateful for the inclusion. He tells me about the woman he drove home at 3, who needed to talk, and he let her talk, and dropped her off at a house with all the lights on, and waited until she got inside. The waitress brings a second coffee without asking, which is the highest form of service I can think of. He nods at her with the nod of long agreement. The taxi driver's breakfast is ending now. He folds the bill in half the way that's automatic, enough to be generous without thinking, which is another thing the long shift teaches. The greenhouse keeps its argument with November going. Tomatoes still on the vine in the heated rows. The cafe is an afterthought inside the growing space. A few tables between the herbs and the cucumbers, and the smell of earth and warmth and something ripening that has no interest in the calendar. Outside the field is bare and done until April, and here the season is a policy, not a fact, which is a philosophical distinction I admire. Greenhouse in November, and the tomatoes disagree with what the thermometer outside is saying. I eat a salad made from things that grew this morning, in defiance of the month, and I approve. Greenhouse in November, and the coffee and the earth smell and the sound of something dripping in irrigation. This is the optimism of the grower, translated into space, which is the best argument for anything I know. A woman tends the basil with a system, checking each plant with the attention of a doctor who has too many patients but gives each one full presents, which is the only way to do it right. The glass walls run with condensation from inside, the breath of all this growing making weather of its own inside the winter walls. Greenhouse in November, I will come in January, when outside is its most committed to the argument, and find the tomatoes still there unreasonably, and have the salad and the coffee, and be right.
In the red light of the dark room, time is different. The radio plays at the volume of a secret, and the paper in the tray is in the process of deciding whether it will become the photograph. I have been here since 4, developing the role from a trip that seems already like another season. The chemistry does the remembering for me, the silver and the developer doing their long argument about what the light recorded and what it meant. Developing hour and the image coming up, the face of someone I was looking at that day in a field I remember differently than this. The photograph corrects me, and I am grateful. Developing hour and the radio between songs, and the tray that holds the flat gray square that is becoming someone standing in a field, which is the alchemy that I keep coming back to. I lift the paper with the tones at the right moment, which is something that took years to know, and put it in the stop bath to end the argument in favor of what I wanted to be. The radio plays something I know from another year, and I stay longer in the chemistry than necessary, because the song and the dark room are exactly right together. Developing hour, the prints hang drying now in the field, and the person are fixed in the paper. I will take them to daylight in an hour and see what the photograph says about what happened.
The art supply store plays jazz on a small speaker, mounted near the cadmium yellows and the reds. I am not a painter, but I come here sometimes for the smell of linseed oil and the name names of colors, viridian and cerulean and raw umber, which are more interesting than most conversations. The staff do not ask what I am making, because they can tell I am not making anything yet, which is a valid stage of the creative process. The paint shop radio playing something from the 50s into the middle distance of the cadmiums. I pick up tubes I cannot use and read the labels. Earth tones and permanent and light fast. The paint shop radio and the afternoon light coming through the front window onto the pigments, turning each one into what it promises, which is more than most things manage to deliver. A painter comes in knowing exactly what she needs and moves through the store like a surgeon with a list. I watch her with the admiration I reserve for people who have chosen and committed. I buy a sketchbook that I may or may not use, and a pencil because pencils are always defensible, and the radio has moved into something slow. The paint shop radio's still playing when I leave. The bell above the door adds one more note. I carry the sketchbook and the names of colors into the rest of the afternoon.
The rain came while I was between the rooms, and I have the corridor with its practice room sounds. A piano in 2/4, running the same 4 bars. A cello somewhere lower, doing something slow. And from 2:10, a voice practicing intervals, which is the sound of a thing being built from nothing. I sit on the window ledge with coffee from the machine and let the practice surround me without obligation. The rain provides the other layer, and it's right. Rain on the conservatory steps, and the practice sounds coming through 6 closed doors simultaneously. Everyone inside their own becoming, and I am here between it in the corridor. Rain on the conservatory steps, and the piano in 2/4 has found a version of the phrase that satisfies. I hear it resolve and stop and then restart, to find the thing before the thing it found. The voice in 2:10 goes silent for a minute, then starts again a half step lower, searching for the register that fits today, which is different from the one that fit last Thursday. A student passes with her instrument case, gives me the nod of someone used to corridors as the place where the work gets reconsidered. Rain on the conservatory steps, still coming, but I have what I needed from the corridor. The evidence that everyone is somewhere inside the difficult middle of they're becoming. I did not expect snow today, and here it is, settling on the outdoor tables they forgot to bring in. The woman at the register comes out to look with me, and we share the window for a moment without speaking, because snow does not require commentary. It requires the 5 seconds of undivided looking. The street below is receiving its annual reset. The edge is going soft and the corners covered, and something in the year agrees to begin again. First snowfall cafe, and the window between us and it. The coffee in my hand, cooling while I watch. The outdoor chairs becoming white and abstract, and the street becoming the idea of a street. First snowfall cafe, and the register woman back inside to mark it somehow in the way that days get marked. A note to herself, or a photograph, or a folder, or just the memory of being at the window first. The regulars coming with it on their coats, saying it as if none of us already know, and we agree with them because the agreement is part of what the first snow asks for. A child walks past dragging a small sled, already committed to the version of the morning that none of the rest of us are ready for. First snowfall cafe, the street is wide and settling, and the year has been given its annual permission to be different from what it has been until now, which is the most useful gift the sky can offer. I know this is the last afternoon of the kind that allows sitting outside in a light coat. The meteorologist was gentle but specific about the change arriving from the north tomorrow. So I am here with the knowledge of the last time, which is different from not knowing. Savoring is a strange occupation. You attend to the thing you are losing more completely than you attended to it when it was simply there. Last afternoon of August, and the light is long, the way that light in August has always been long. Falling on a terrace at the angle I have loved since I was old enough to notice various angles. Last afternoon of August, and the cup in my hand, warm against the evening that is starting at the edges. I am doing the attending that the season asks, and the season is receiving it correctly. The couple at the next table has not noticed, or has noticed and chosen not to mark it, which is another valid way to be in August. The unguarded version is also true. A leaf comes down from the tree beside the terrace, the first one of the year, and it is early. Even the tree is practicing. Last afternoon of August, I will be back in spring, and the terrace will have its own way of welcoming. But this light at this angle in this code is the version I am keeping from this year. The wax goes into the pot at 2 and takes 30 minutes to arrive at temperature. I have been doing this pour every afternoon for 3 years, and the 30 minutes is the best part of the day. The coffee on the side burner keeps pace with the wax, both of them warming to the right readiness. There is a precision to the pour, temperature too hot and the wick will not hold, center too cool and the surface will not set correctly. The candle maker's kitchen and the wax at temperature, the pour into the waiting vessel at the right moment. I do it with both hands and the attention I have learned to give to things that cannot be undone. The candle maker's kitchen and the 30 candles cooling on the rack by the window in the afternoon. Each one will burn for 30 hours if correctly made, and I have made them correctly for 3 years. The scent goes in before the pour is complete, so it distributes through the whole rather than settling, which is a lesson I learned from someone who learned from someone, and the learning is the lineage of the trade. The cooling candles make the kitchen smell like the thing they will smell like when they burn, which is the wax keeping its promise in advance. The candle maker's kitchen, the pour is done, and the rack is full, and the afternoon is spent well. I wash the pot and put it back exactly where the next pour will know to find it. The pharmacy's kept its soda counter since the 60s, and and serves milkshakes between prescriptions without apology. The chrome is original and the stools turn fully, and the woman behind it has been here for 11 years. I come in autumn because the light in here does something to the amber bottles on the shelf. The prescription counter and the soda counter should not occupy the same room, but they do. And the combination is more honest than it is strange. Autumn at the old pharmacy and the chrome counter, and something in a glass with 2 straws and 1 opinion. The afternoon light makes the medicine bottles glow, and I am in a room that remembers its own purpose. Autumn at the old pharmacy, and the reasonable price of something cold and sweet and slightly medicinal. I sit at the stool that turns and turn it slowly, and feel the particular comfort of things that stayed. An old man comes in for his Tuesday prescription and stays for the milkshake he has been having on Tuesdays here for 40 years without interruption, which is a commitment I understand and admire. The pharmacist comes out to check on his Tuesday patient, and they discuss the milkshake as if it were medicine, which it may well be by now. Autumn at the old pharmacy, I leave the stool the way you leave a thing you found by accident, meaning to come back, which I will on a Tuesday when I need what the old man has. The papermaker studio is full of the sound of water, the vat and the mold and the water draining through, and somewhere the sheet of paper becoming what it will be when it is dry and ready. She works with her hands submerged without ceremony, pulling the fiber from the water with the mold. I watch the sheet form on the mesh below the water, and understand for the first time what paper is, which is fiber and water and patience arranged by hands. The papermaker studio and the water and the light and the wet sheets draining on the drying boards. She reads the surface of each one like a report and places them where they need the right air. The papermaker studio in the afternoon quiet, broken only by the water and the drainage, and the setting down of the mold on the board, which is the sound of the oldest art completing. Paper takes 2 days to dry correctly, she tells me. depends on things I cannot see yet, but which the paper knows about itself and will reveal when it is ready. She shows me a sheet she made from cotton rag that survived the washing of someone's shirt for 40 years. The life of the fiber before it became the paper is part of the paper, she says, and I believe her. The paper maker's studio, I carry a sample sheet away that she pressed and dried last week and gave me when I could not choose between wanting it and knowing I could not use something made with that much care.
The bookbinder takes his lunch at the bench among the signatures and the bone folder and the paste. The book in progress waits beneath the weight, which is the correct position for a thing between stages. I am here learning a trade I will not master, but I have been given the bench and the hour. He eats his sandwich and explains the sewing structure, not because I asked, but because he cannot eat without the occupation of explaining something true. The bookbinder's lunch and the half-sewn pages, the linen thread still hanging from the needle. I hold the book like something I am responsible for, which it turns out I am for this hour. The bookbinder's lunch and the afternoon arriving through the window onto the bone folder and the paste. There is an argument, but this is one of the oldest trades, and sitting in it now, I find that argument convincing. He tells me that the book will open flat when it is done because of the way the sewing distributes the stress, and that a book that opens flat is a book that gets used, which is the whole point of binding one at all. The paintbrush has been used for 30 years and has a shape that only comes from that much use. The shape of the specific work it has been asked to do. The bookbinder's lunch is done, the weight comes off, and he picks up the thread and goes back in. I watch the needle find its place again in the old and patient work of making things hold.
The linen shop has a corner with 2 chairs where the owner drinks her coffee and does nothing, which she has earned through 30 years of fabric and the knowledge of which weave is right for what. I found the corner by accident and was invited because the owner knows a browser from a buyer. The afternoon light comes through the bolts of white and makes the whole room into something minimal. And I have stopped needing to go anywhere. The linen shop corner and the coffee and the white, the bolts of undecided fabric on the shelves. The owner folds a length of something linen colored with the care of someone for whom care is natural. The linen shop corner and the texture of the afternoon, the rough and smooth of this specific quiet. I run my hand along a bolt of something unbleached and feel the whole of its honest character. She shows me the difference between the two good linens, with her fingers on the cloth before she speaks. Because the cloth is the argument, and she knows it, and words come second to the thing itself. A card of something new arrives from the back, the smell of unwashed cloth before it has a purpose, which is the smell of possibility. The linen shop corner, I will stay a little longer until the owner puts her cup away and rises, which will be my signal, and I will follow it back into the afternoon, with the texture still in my hands.
The glass blower eats his lunch beside the cooling rack, where three vessels are doing what they cannot be rushed through. The glass takes the time that glass takes to become itself, and he has learned to eat around the schedule. I am visiting the studio for a different reason, but the lunch break is the realest part I see. He offers coffee and I take it without question, the kind of coffee that is made for working people, strong and no ceremony about the cup. The glass blower's lunch in the studio heat, the glass behind him holding its new shape. He does not look at it because he already knows what looking will and will not tell him now. The glass blower's lunch and the ordinary sandwich, and the coffee and the radio between songs, and the sound of something cooling in the corner, which is the sound of everything becoming what it is. He tells me that the hardest part is stopping, knowing when the thing is done, and setting down the rod. The instinct is to keep adjusting, but you have to read the material and trust what it is saying. The glass makes no sound and it's cooling, but he checks it by the look of it, something in the curve he knows to look for. The glass blower's lunch is done, he stands and stretches, puts on the gloves and goes back to the heat. I take the last of the coffee to the door, a specific quality. The coffee has been running since 7 yesterday. The drummer is asleep across 2 chairs completely. And the bassist is looking at a phone like homework. We have been inside the same song for 9 hours, and we are taking 20 minutes to not be. The engineer comes out and says it's almost there, which means we will all go back in and find it. Or we will find something better than what we planned. Studio break at 3, the coffee and the fluorescence, and the drummer in his sleep still keeping something, tapping on his knee at a tempo only he can hear, which is a drummer's relationship with music. Studio break at 3 and the engineer's almost there is the most optimistic phrase in the language. We are all in it together, which is the thing about 3 in the morning. It burns away the parts that were not necessary. The bassist plays the line on the table with her fingers. The guitarist hums something he has not named yet. I add a word to it, and he looks up and nods, which is the fastest song we've written all night. The drummer opens one eye, checks the clock and closes it, then opens both and sits up without explanation. Some people have a relationship with time that is genetic. Studio break at 3 is ending now. We put the cups down and go back through the door into the song that is almost what we mean, which means it needs 1 more hour, and we have it.
The reading room has white gloves on the table and a folder from the 1935 collection. Inside it, someone's letters home from a city that was under a different government then. The handwriting tells me she was educated and homesick and very funny about both. I read her for 2 hours with the white gloves on, which is the closest I will come to her hands, the paper carrying the weight of the pen she used. The old correspondence room and the 30s letters, and the woman who was funny in a difficult year. I follow her through the winter of that city and out the other side into a different letter. The old correspondence room and the white glove protocol. The archivist who checks on me without intruding. I have been given access to someone's private keeping, which is the greatest trust a stranger ever gives. In March of '36, she found a cafe her stay all afternoon for one small coffee, and she describes it with the love of the person who has found the thing that makes the city bearable. I recognize the cafe from the description, and it exists, and I have been there without knowing that she sat in that same room in 36. The old correspondence room, I close the folder carefully and return it with the gloves beside the box, and leave knowing something about 1936 that I did not know when I arrived this morning. Started while my brush was in the water, and changed the painting before I had decided what the painting was going to be. I am working on the street outside the window, and the rain is working on the street in real time. We are collaborating without agreement. The watercolor bleeds at the edges when the paper is wet, which I have been fighting for an hour, and which the rain has now made the whole method. Watercolor in the rain and the street going soft, the edges of what I see and what I paint converging. I stopped correcting 20 minutes ago and started following, which is better for this weather. Watercolor in the rain and the coffee cooling beside the palette, and the palette running colors into each other, which is the accident that becomes the intention once you decide to call it what it is. The woman at the next table has been watching with the interest of someone who used to paint. She asks me about the paper, and I tell her, and she nods as if I confirmed something she suspected. The rain slows in the street outside, sharpens, and the painting holds both versions of the street, the certain and the almost, which is better than either. Watercolor in the rain, the painting is done, because the rain stopped and I stopped with it, which is how you know when a thing is finished, the moment the collaboration ends. The plant cafe is where I come to write the morning into the language the notebooks require, specific and without the poetry of feeling, which is safe for later if at all. I found a specimen I have not seen before in the East Meadow, and now I am describing it. The description takes 3 drafts to be accurate, because the first 2 are approximate, and the specimen deserves the precise version. The bottom is field notes, and the plant cafe is green. I work in the right environment for the work, surrounded by the cousins of what I am describing, which helps the language find its way. The botanist field notes, and the specimen in question, the leaf arrangement, and the stem diameter. The notes will go into the record and outlast me, which is not a reason for imprecision, but a demand for it. The barista has a plant question every few weeks about the one by the window that is struggling. Today I tell her about the light, and she nods and moves it 2 feet to the left, which is right. My coffee is cold before the description is done, which is the usual relationship between these 2 things. And I drink it cold because the note is done. The botanist field notes submitted to the record. I put the notebook in the bag with the samples and leave the green cafe for the green outside, which is a shorter distance than it sometimes feels. I am living in 2 languages at once today. The novel in the original, and my version in the margin. The author's word for longing in her language does not arrive in mine without a loss of something. I circle what is lost and note it in the margin, which is a kind of accounting for the untranslatable. The cafe around me is in 1 language only, which is a relief after the dual occupation of the page that asks me to hold both. The translator's margin filling up with choices, the word I almost used and the one I used instead. The feeling that exists in 1 language precisely, and in the other only approximately. The translator's margin and the cup going cold, because the word pulled me in longer than I planned. Some words are doorways that you step through without noticing, until you are inside a different room. A sentence I have been avoiding for 3 pages reveals itself between the 2nd and 3rd cups, as simpler than I feared and richer than I hoped, which is the translation's gift when it arrives. I put the pen down for 10 minutes just to sit in the space between 2 languages without choosing, which is the rarest position in the work. the translator's margin. I will finish this cafe and the chapter and the cup in that order, and carry the author's longing word home with me, and the language I was born to, and the one I have learned. The lavender vendor takes up half the Saturday market, and the smell of her stall precedes the stall by 20 feet. I smelled it first through the bread vendor's steam, and tracked it to the woman with the purple hands, who has been growing lavender in the valley long enough that she has a vocabulary for types. She tells me the difference between the high and low lavender, the one for sachets and the one for cooking, and the one she keeps just because she loves it. Lavender at the market, and the purple-handed vendor, who has more names for one thing than I have for most. I buy the one for cooking, and the one for sachets, and the one she loves because it seemed required. Lavender at the market, and the morning turning warm, the bread vendor's steam, and the lavender mixing, which is not a combination I would have chosen, but which is the combination that this Saturday chose. A child runs between the stalls with both hands full of sample lavender sprigs she collected freely, and nobody minds because she is not running away. She is running towards something which is different. I carry the 3 bundles home against my coat, and everything I pass through smells like the valley for the length of the walk. Lavender at the market already in my bag. I come back the following Saturday as planned, and the week between them smells of what I bought, which is exactly what the vendor intended. She left me the key and the instructions for the coffee, which are different from mine in 3 specific ways. I follow them exactly because the coffee is hers, and I am a guest in the kitchen of a friend. Her cups are where they are for her reasons, and I open all the right drawers in the wrong order. The morning light in her kitchen comes from the east, which is different from the north light I am used to, and makes the coffee cup look like it is from a painting. A borrowed kitchen, and the coffee made her way. The cup I chose from her particular shelf. The cheer the faces, the window she must face. On ordinary mornings I have not witnessed a borrowed kitchen and the particular smell of someone else's cleaned and ordinary home. I am the temporary inhabitant of her routines, which is a form of love that goes in both directions. Her plant on the sill needs a small amount of water, which she told me about as if it were a person. I give it exactly what she said and nothing more, because she knows this plant and I do not. I wash the cup the way I think she would, which is careful and then dried immediately and hung back in the place it came from. A borrowed kitchen, I will lock it when I leave and slide the key back through the door she showed me. And she will come home to her kitchen being itself, with nothing to indicate I was here except the plant.
It starts between my second and my third cup. Small and unconvincing at first, then committed. The street below goes quiet in the way streets do, when the sound is absorbed by something new. The woman at the register announces it to no one, and we all look up at once and then back down. There is a contract between snow and attention. You cannot not look when the first one comes. Even if you knew it was coming, you still look. First snow in the table, cup in hand. The year's been doing something, and now this. The street receives it without an opinion, and I receive it with considerable feeling. First snow, window, table, everyone looks up and then looks at each other. Looking up, which is the rare moment of unanimous surprise that you cannot manufacture and cannot keep. By the time my cup is empty, it is real snow, the kind that sticks to horizontal surfaces and softens all the edges of the city into something closer to intention. The barista takes a photograph through the window for the record she's keeping of the season, and I approve of this record-keeping impulse. First snow, window, table, I will come back here when the snow is ordinary and unremarkable, and remember that I was the person at this table who saw the year change into the one that follows. station cafe closes at 11:30, and the last train is at 11:42, which gives me 12 minutes and a coffee that the barista makes with the mercy of the final round. The platform has 3 people and a pigeon, and all of us are waiting for the same departure. I have had a good day in this city, and now I am completing it correctly, with the last coffee and the last train home. Last train coffee and the platform settling, the announcement coming through the speakers soft, as if the station knows that this announcement requires a different volume than the rush hour ones. Last train coffee and the barista closing up, we exchange the nod of the mutual 11:30, which is the nod of people doing the same thing at the right time, which is the best alignment. The train arrives before my cup is finished, which is always how it goes with last trains. I take it with me through the gate and drink the last of it on the platform. The pigeon has its own opinion about the train and relocates to the opposite bench without urgency. I watch it make the calculation and approve. Last train coffee finished on the platform, I board and find the window seat by habit, and watch the station do its last work of the night, which is the quiet and the dark and the turning off.